OBJECTified Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Good to see you.
Okay, let's do it. I'm Harvey Levin. This is a story about one of the most successful immigrants in the world. Arnold Schwarzenegger became the gold standard of professional bodybuilding, something his parents did not embrace.
My mother said, why does he have all these oily guys, you know, hanging on the wall?
So she thought you were gay. He scoffed at conventional Hollywood, determined to become the biggest movie star in the world.
I want to be another Clint Eastwood.
And his third act may be the most stunning, becoming the governor of California.
It was the most rewarding thing that I've ever done.
But there were failures, like the affair we thought ended his marriage. It's now 6 years later. You're not divorced yet. Why? Arnold Schwarzenegger, the man who repeatedly defied impossible odds and became the epitome of the American dream. Hey there.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For inviting me into this gym. I pay money for gyms that don't have as much equipment as this. This is
well,
amazing.
I thought we should start here.
But before we start, I took the liberty of walking around a little bit.
Right.
Oh my God. Is this what I think? Is this Muhammad Ali?
Yeah. He gave it to me as a souvenir because I became very good friends with him, and you know, he's one of my idols, because he's not only one of the greatest athletes of all time, but I mean the most generous person. And I think that he taught a lot of other athletes, including myself, about giving back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start. So, you know, I think it's so odd to me that we're going to start talking about your life in Austria when we're in this opulent setting. But I got to tell you, when I walked in here and looked around, what struck me was the picture of your parents kind of looms over this whole gym. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, first of all, I know that I come into this gym every day. That gives me a chance to also see my parents every day. I love my parents. They're terrific, but the other side of the coin is they never really approved of the weightlifting and the bodybuilding. They didn't understand it. It was just in the beginning, it was really tough. They had their own vision that I should become a police officer like my father did, and, you know, get married in Austria and all of those kind of things. Have a girl by the name of Heidi and have a bunch of kids and like the Sound of Music kind of thing, you know. So being up in the Alps. And I had bodybuilding pictures all over my bedroom. So then my mother said, why does he have all these oily guys, you know, hanging on the wall when all the other boys have girls hanging on the wall? So then she called the doctor.
So she thought you were gay?
She just thought there was something off. She didn't say that. You know, my mother didn't quite understand it. And so the house doctor, you call for anything. You know, you call if you have an illness, you call if you have a problem.
My son's got bodybuilders on the wall. Come in and help quick.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's a gross understatement to say you grew up far from privileged.
Yes, I would say so, yeah.
No toilet, no running water. You were poor.
We were poor. My father was working as a police officer. My mother stayed at home. She was the Hausfrau. We did not look at ourselves as poor. It was quite normal.
When you end up taking a bath in the same bath water as 3 other family members and you get the black water, at a point you've got to feel like this is not a great situation.
No, it was so normal in our house. And remember that the house next to us didn't have any flushing toilet either.
So tell me about your dad.
He was a nice guy, but he was a tough guy. He was a product of the Second World War. So after the war, when I was born, 2 years after the war ended, you know, they did not deal in those days with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And all of the people, all the guys that were in the war that I grew up with, they came back with unbelievable side effects of the war. They felt like losers, and they felt like, you know, depressed. And my father, he was drinking because of the pain that he still had. He had shrapnels all over his lower leg. He was a strict dad, and don't screw with him because he will punish you, and he will make it very clear that the whip is right over there, you're gonna get it.
Did you feel abused?
No, never. Because when I went to school, my neighborhood kid, my friend, told me that the same thing happened to him, and another kid said the same thing happened to him. So everyone had their stories.
I don't want to suggest this is a good thing, because it's not, but it feels like it almost motivated you, that it almost gave you resolve.
Well, you know, the saying, that what does not kill you will make you stronger. And that's exactly what it was. It was like some kids broke, and other kids didn't, you know, and I definitely didn't. And to me, I felt like, okay, I'm going to create my own world, and my own world was the lifting world. So this was kind of all of a sudden my positive feedback for the first time. So the gym was the place to go.
Meinhardt, your brother, he was the golden child, kind of. Your dad kind of looked at him that way?
My brother was fantastic. I mean, he was great looking. He was a great athlete. He was 1 year and 14 days older than me. And so he was always ahead of me in everything. If it is in athletics in the school or in general with knowledge and everything like that. And he was smart and he was talented in every way. I mean, he was really fantastic.
He died at 25 in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
He was apparently drunk and got in a bad car accident.
That's right.
How'd that affect you?
Well, it was a blow, because when I came home, I remember I came home from a trip from back east, doing a posing exhibition and a seminar.
You were in the United States by then?
That's right, yes.
You didn't go to the funeral?
No.
I'm interested why.
I didn't have the money. I didn't have the money.
There are a lot of people who are poor who give up. Why not you?
Well, there was really no option. To me, it was like kind of, okay, this is not something that I feel comfortable with. I don't like living here. So all of a sudden, I started forming my own kind of vision. America is the place for me to go. I got to find a way to get to America. So that, I became obsessed with that.
Okay, tell me what that is.
This is to do ice curling with. It's something that you use this, and you kind of slide it on the ice.
Ah, and you got that when?
I got this one when I was 10 years old, so this is very old.
10 years old is around the time you decided you wanted to bolt from Austria.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, I don't know if you remember, can you remember the minute you kind of had this epiphany that I'm going to America?
When I started watching documentaries, the Super 8mm documentaries that we have seen once a week in our classroom.
Here in the land of the free.
Where they showed the United States, and they showed New York and the huge bridge. This is Golden Gate Bridge, and they showed the freeways, and I've never even seen anything like this, with so many lanes, and the ocean, and Hollywood, and the high-rises. Oh my God. The infrastructure was just so extraordinary, the buildings and everything, that I said to myself, this is so little around here. I mean, I'm around little farms. I mean, what am I doing here? This is where I should be. So then I had to figure out how to do that. And so as time went on, I said to myself, well, maybe it's through sports. And all of a sudden, I was sucked into the gym, and there I started training. And then when I read the cover story where Reg Park, this three-time Mr. Universe, was on in this pose, this Hercules pose, and I read his story. It said that he started out in this little town, and a few years later he became the British champion in bodybuilding and the powerlifting champion, and then he started winning Mr. Universe, and I said to myself, wow, that's the career, that's what I should do. I should just follow that. It was like a blueprint for my life. And that he was invited as being the Mr. Universe to do a Hercules movie. So I said to myself, wow, this is perfect. I cannot even believe it. I said, so I'm gonna go and get into bodybuilding, be a champion, and then maybe I can get into movies, into Hercules movies.
Right, but there are not many Reg Parks, and there are a lot of people who try.
Absolutely, but for me it was not even a question. It was not even a question, would this happen or not? The not did not exist. It didn't exist at all. It was like, this is what I'm going to do, and I will do it. And I was 100% convinced it would happen.
You're 15 years old, and you decide, I'm going to become Mr. Universe someday, and you've got a lot of friends, and you're telling your friends, I'm going to America, I'm going to be Mr. Universe, and they think you're crazy.
Of course. I always say one of the rules to success is not to listen to the naysayers. Because every time you want to say something that is extraordinary, people are going to say that's impossible. No one has ever done that. But they totally missed the boat that, yeah, no one has done it. That's great because I'm going to do it. Well, you cannot go to America. What do you think? They were going to wait for an Austrian farm boy over there? Well, I did it. You know, you want to get into movies? No, I don't want to get into movies. I want to be a leading man in the movies. I want to make the most money. I want to be another Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson. Those were my idols. They said, that's what I want to be. And they said, that's impossible. So they always would say that. You have to understand that people are afraid of failure. And that's what stifles them. That's what ties them down. That's what imprisons them. Because before they even start anything, they're already afraid that, what is if I fail? Oh, poor baby. How far can you fall? Here's the ground. That's it. And then you get up, you dust yourself off, and you get going again. So everyone will fail. There's no such thing. I mean, I lost in bodybuilding competitions. I lost in weightlifting, in powerlifting. I've had movies that go in the toilet. I've had my problems in a personal life. Yes, there will be failures. But you got to get up and dust yourself up and get going. Because if you stay down, you're a loser. And I hate losers.
Bodybuilding is exhibitionism. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not an exhibitionist. Are you an exhibitionist?
What a super sight when the supermen of Europe got together in Cologne for the International Bodybuilding Contest.
Well, this pretty much says it all. That you have all these trophies are unbelievable. All these, but what is this? This is the one that seems to be featured. What is this?
Well, it's just one of the Mr. Olympia competitions that I won, which was in South Africa. And so as a trophy...
That does not look like a bodybuilding
As a trophy, they gave a drum because it was South Africa. So it's Mr. Olympia 1975.
There are a lot of guys who want their moment, and you dominated everything.
One and only Arnold Schwarzenegger.
How did you separate yourself from everybody else?
What separated me from the others was obviously the personality.
Come on, get me a kiss. I heard about this, guys.
And my psych-out methods that I used.
He's not even in shape yet. I mean, gee, he didn't get the timing right, I'm telling you. A month from now would have been perfect for you. But then I get bigger too again, so, you know, doesn't matter what the hell.
And the kind of, you know, shtick that I did on the stage.
Can I give you my observation?
Go ahead.
I think what separated you was that you were an entertainer. That you were an entertainer on stage, and they weren't. And that just drew people to you.
But also I found joy in being on the stage. I found joy in the gym, and I think they also saw that. I had a great time posing. When you see that a lot of times guys posing, you know, they have those faces. And I didn't believe that we should have those faces. I thought that we should just, you know, smile and keep a good, relaxed face and move and move and move. And the fingers have to go and, you know, do things that become kind of like eye-catching. But they say, what is he doing? Because to me it was very important what you do in between the poses.
Right.
Not just the end pose, but the way you move from one pose to the next, that was important, and in showing the joy. And, you know, so there was several things like that that separated me from the others.
Joy does not pay the rent, and it was hard to make money in bodybuilding. So you come out here and you dominate bodybuilding, but it's not the way you're gonna deal with that side of your life, which is to make money, right?
Well, but remember that I did not get into bodybuilding to become rich.
Right.
I got into bodybuilding because I found great joy in it. It was a new way of carving out a life for me that was interesting to me. It was my thing, and it got me to America. Then the rest of it was up to me, what I'm going to do with it. And as a matter of fact, in the early days, when I was already several times Mr. Universe and Mr. Olympia, I still was working as a bricklayer. Franco and I, we started a bricklaying business.
Franco Colombo.
Exactly, my training partner. And we put an ad in the LA Times that said, European bricklayer and masonry experts. And, you know, because Americans love...
I can already tell that's not true.
No, but it was true. We were building patios, and we were building chimneys and walls and all kinds of things. And we were very lucky, because when we started our business, we did really well, but then all of a sudden was the earthquake in 1971, and a lot of the chimneys fell down, and a lot of the walls fell down, a lot of cracks in the buildings, so they called us, and we all of a sudden got like 100 phone calls, and we were busy and busy and busy and made money. It was fantastic.
Bodybuilding is exhibitionism. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not an exhibitionist. Are you an exhibitionist?
Well, it is exhibitionist, but that just happens to be part of the sport to show. There's some people that go out on stage and they crumble and they get nervous and embarrassed to be out there and all this stuff. And there's others that really start to shine. I was one of those that got on stage. I always lifted more weight than in the gym when we did powerlifting or weightlifting. And I also kind of performed better on the stage when in bodybuilding and competition. And I was in front of people. And the bigger the crowd, the more I came alive.
There has now been some distance between all of the stories that came out about the affair and now. It's been years. Now that you had some time to reflect on it, what's your view?
I don't need any time to reflect when I know it was a major, major screw-up.
So you have pictures of Maria all over the place. I remember back when I first heard that you were involved with Maria Shriver, I thought, what an unlikely pair.
What is the saying? Opposites attract, right? And that's exactly what happened. I think she comes from a totally different upbringing, totally different background, totally different country, totally different financial situation. She always was a little rebel, so she wanted to go in a totally different direction of what her parents wanted her to do. And for me, I was just so amazed about her beauty, about her intelligence, and her great sense of humor. It was beyond anything. And so we just clicked.
And you dated a long time before you married, years.
I was in no hurry to get married, and nor did she feel that she had to rush. Then eventually we did get married, and it was a fantastic marriage.
What was it like, Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to the Kennedy compound for the first time and meeting Eunice and Sergeant Shriver?
Eunice, I think that she just really liked me right from the beginning, you know, my sense of humor.
I heard a story about the first time you met her, something you may have said about why you admired her daughter so much. Ringing a bell?
Yes.
You want to share?
Well, no, I think we all had a little bit too much to drink at that time. And I said to her, I said, I really enjoy your daughter, and I love her ass. Great ass. And she looked at me and she just went there, yeah, that's funny. You know, but I mean, I don't know what she thought, you know.
I'm always interested when you have two smart, successful people who marry, how the dynamic works, and especially when they're, like you said, polar opposites. Who was more dominant in the relationship?
I don't think that there was such thing in our relationship, because Maria had certain assets, and I let her go and use those in a relationship, and she let me use mine. And so I was very good always with money, and I was very good with numbers, and I was very good in really bringing leadership in certain areas to the family, and she brought leadership in other areas, and especially when it came to the kids. We never, ever had an argument, why do you always make the decision, or why do you always make the decision? It was none of that. It was really, there was great harmony.
There has now been some distance between all of the stories that came out about the affair and now. It's been years. Now that you had some time to reflect on it, what's your view?
I don't need any time to reflect when I know it was a major, major screw-up. So there's not much to reflect. I mean, I think that is, I really enjoy my successes, but I despise my failures. And that was one of the major failures, if not the biggest one.
Does it kind of dog you still, or is it something you've just accepted? How do you deal with it now?
You got to move on. And the most important thing is to keep that family dynamic going. Because you want the kids not to suffer from this. I mean, they have gone through their pain anyway. But so you're trying to make it as comfortable for them. And so we get together as many times as possible. We always made a commitment that even though we go through these difficult periods, that we are going to do everything we can to take care of the kids. And Maria and I, we love our kids. We love our kids. We think the world of our kids. And so this is why we make this effort. It's not like kind of, and we never really had a fight over anything. So you have to understand, it was just like I screwed up, and that was the big problem.
The divorce papers were filed in 2011. I was looking at this, and it's now 6 years later. You're not divorced yet. Why?
That's kind of a little bit too personal, so I'm not going to get into that.
You can't blame me for looking.
No, not at all.
It's just, it's interesting to me that my conclusion is there is a very deep bond.
Well, there always was. Jim Cameron said when we came out with Terminator, he said Terminator would have never worked if Schwarzenegger wouldn't have talked like a machine.
Were you his first choice?
I think that the first choice was O.J. Simpson.
I literally have to hold on to this table after hearing that.
We're on a mission to show drip coffee drinkers it's time to wake up to Keurig. Wakey, wakey, right?
Now this sword here is a very important item because this was the sword that we used in Conan the Barbarian.
No.
Yes, this is the original sword. Exactly.
May I?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh. It's heavy.
Yeah, it weighs 13 pounds. And this was usually used in close-ups so that the steel can be shown, but it was not used in some of the fight scenes because you didn't want to cut anyone. Why this is significant is because Conan the Barbarian was really the first big breakthrough movie for me internationally.
So this bodybuilder is 6'2", 250 pounds, and all of the muscle men were in the 50s who were in movies. And then you got, around the Conan time, Al Pacino and, people much smaller than that. How did you think you were going to break into movies with that landscape?
When I went to agents and to studio executives, they would say to me, you want to be in the movies? Are you out of your mind? I says, you will never be in the movies. He says, this big muscles like the 250 pounds or whatever you weigh, he says, that's out, that was 20 years ago. Now, he says, the new idols are, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, and Woody Allen. That's a sex symbol. Woody Allen, he said to me, and that's in all seriousness, he says, those are the sex symbols.
And no offense, but English was also their first language.
Well, that was the other thing that he mentioned,
right.
that they all mentioned to me. He says, the body is too big. No one ever has become a leading man with an accent, so especially with a German accent. He says, maybe you can get you a job on Hogan's Heroes or something like that. You can play a Nazi officer or something. But he says, believe me, he says, Arnold, we like you, but movies, forget about it.
So how did you crack Hollywood?
Well, so I just was persistent because like I said, I had my own vision, and so I chased that vision. I said to myself, okay, the amount of work that I put in to bodybuilding, 5-6 hours a day, if I put the same amount of effort into acting, and I go to acting class and accent removal classes and speech classes and English classes and do all of this stuff, that eventually something has to happen. And because I'm going to get good at it. And so this is exactly what happened. I started doing Pumping Iron. I started doing Stay Hungry.
Once you get used to it, it's hard to give up. I know to stay hungry.
And start slowly breaking in. Then all of a sudden came the big break when Ed Pressman saw Pumping Iron and he saw my body and my personality. He said, this would be perfect for Conan. I'm going to buy the Conan rights. And that's exactly what he did. The very thing that the agents and studio executives said would never work, this big body, all of a sudden it was an absolute must in order to do this movie. And the same thing happened with Terminator.
A weapon will be invented like no other. This weapon will be called the Terminator.
When I did Terminator, Jim Cameron said, when we came out with Terminator, and it was a hit, he said, Terminator would have never worked if Schwarzenegger wouldn't have talked like a machine. With that accent, with that German accent, he says, that's what made it work.
I'll be back.
You play a character in Terminator, and this has really struck me, and I've been thinking about this last week. Play a character who is this, like you said, this machine with this accent, and he can be calculating and focused and even cold. It's a little bit of a cameo.
Well, of course. I mean, those guys picked me because I was, you know, this kind of like machine-like character. And I talked, like Cameron said, like a machine.
Sarah Connor.
Yes?
It's all about it. He doesn't look because it's a machine. He doesn't have to look at it. He loads the gun. And and the key thing is not to blink when you shoot somebody, not to show any remorse, not to show any joy, nothing. Just to be a machine, like boom.
Were you his first choice?
I think that the first choice was O.J. Simpson.
Why did they not go with O.J.?
I think that what I heard was that they felt like he was not villain enough, that he didn't look as much of a killer and all that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it just felt like I was more believable in being the machine.
I literally have to hold on to this table after hearing that.
That's the ironic thing. As a matter of fact, I have the original painting that had O.J. Simpson as the Terminator. And then after that, when I saw that, 3-4 months later, Cameron gave me the painting back, and he painted my face over O.J.'s face.
So if they do like another Terminator, he's in the running.
You can ask him that.
What's more important to you, the art of making a movie or making money from a movie?
I have been off the money thing for a long time. The last thing I think about is the money. That is not like I only work because of money. I love the work that I do. It's my Austrian room.
Wow.
So if I want to feel like I am at home, then I sit down there on the table, and we have lunch here, and here's a cradle. Each one of the kids was lying in there, and I had this cradle next to my office chair, and I just put a string around here, and I was pulling on the string like this, nice and slow, until they fell asleep. And I would do all my work and stuff like that, and they would be sleeping right next to me. So it was really fantastic.
So every kid was in this
Every
script?
one of the kids was in this script, yeah, exactly, in this cradle.
So you were an involved parent then, as these kids grew up?
Well, you know, what happens is, you know, Maria was working also.
Right.
And even though she stopped working because of the children, but she sometimes went and did some interviews. So during that time, then I took over the kids. But I loved having the kids, especially when they were babies.
You spoil your kids?
Yes and no, you know, in a disciplined way, but also we also spoiled them. I think that by the very fact when you grow up in Brentwood and when you grow up with parents like us, where we have money and where we have a beautiful house and where we have the luxury of having a nanny and all this kind of stuff, inevitably you spoil them.
9.
They all, I have to say, I have to give them all a compliment. They all make me very proud. Catherine is into TV work and writing books and all that stuff. Christina is interior designer, and she's doing a fantastic job there. Patrick is an actor, and he's an investor and businessman. He just graduated from USC. And Christopher, he goes to the University of Michigan. And he's doing a fantastic job. He's an A student. He loves being up in Michigan. I don't know why, because he's freezing his butt off all the time, but he just loves it. And Joseph, my other son, is also very successful with his education and going to university and study business.
Do they come to you?
They come to me, they come to my wife. They're smart. They don't get into trouble. They don't do drugs, alcohol, any of those things. So I'm very lucky.
Is that something that you kind of imbued in them because of what you had with your dad about drinking and about drugs and things like that?
Yes, but there was never really a potential because Maria and I, we were not drinkers. So therefore, they never saw us drinking. So this, I think that all that helps. Kids emulate their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you didn't in that respect.
No, but I'm very disciplined. I stayed away from it. I think my kids have been really good with that. And we don't have a problem with it. We're lucky.
I saw this on the mantle. This is awesome. Explain this.
I have been invited by President Bush many times to Camp David.
He writes to you, Arnold, turn, damn it, turn.
Because a few seconds after this photograph was taken, we kind of slid into Barbara Bush, and she broke her leg. And then she had to go to the hospital.
I'm kind of taken by these busts that you have. Kennedy, Lincoln, Reagan. Why them?
Reagan was extraordinary. He's one of the best presidents we've had. And so is Lincoln, and so was Kennedy. So that's why I have the collection of this.
All of these people mastered power. Is that a common theme, and is that something that inspires you?
Well, that maybe is something that you see. I see public service. I see doing something that is wonderful for your country. I mean, if you just think about what each one of those presidents accomplished and really moved the agenda forward, it was extraordinary. And so I draw admiration from them, having them around. To get into and prove that you, as an outsider, can be as effective, if not more effective. I don't look at the Democrats as villains. I don't look at the Republicans as villains. I look at them as public servants. Let's bring them together and solve some of the problems. So I was inspired by that.
There are a lot of people who kind of take citizenship for granted, and I'm wondering if the fact that you needed to win citizenship as an immigrant, whether that had an impact on your desire to serve.
I think that when you are an immigrant and when you're a foreigner and you see this country opening up its arms and giving you all the opportunities, and everything that I've accomplished in my life is because of America, then you feel always kind of you're indebted to America, and you should give something back. I was willing to turn my back on all the millions of dollars that I could have made during those years when I was governor. It didn't mean anything to me. I didn't even think about that. Because to me, the joy of serving the people of California and for them to have the confidence, it was such a great honor for me to do that, and it was the most rewarding thing that I've ever done.
Did you get advice from the family of that guy?
I got plenty of advice when I was around the Shrivers and around the Kennedys. It kind of motivates you because it's really wonderful how one person can make a difference.
Did Ted Kennedy think it was a good idea when you said, I'm going to run for governor?
Ted, I think, thought that it would be difficult. It's a Democratic state, you're a Republican, it's not going to happen, and all that kind of stuff. So I said to Teddy, I said, just give me one advice. And he said to me, he says, don't get into specifics. The journalists always ask for specifics, and that's where they want to trip you, because they're not interested in helping you. They're interested in tripping you up.
Do you think entertainment helped you prepare for politics?
Absolutely. I think that to be in front of the camera for that much, you feel comfortable with cameras, you feel comfortable having done so many press conferences, having been in front of the press. But the most helpful is that you can articulate your vision.
I will say to the car tax, to the 300% car tax, hasta la vista, baby!
I saw this on the mantle. This is awesome. Explain this. This is awesome.
I've been invited by President Bush many times to Camp David, right? This was like 1990. He invited me up there after he appointed me to the President's Council on Fitness.
He writes to you, Arnold, turn, damn it, turn.
Well, the reason why he writes, Arnold, turn, damn it, turn, is because a few seconds after this photograph was taken, we kind of slid into Barbara Bush, into her leg, and she broke her leg. And then she had to go to the hospital, and they had a cast.
I remember this.
Exactly.
He's got a good sense of humor.
Very good sense of humor, yeah. But I mean, anyway, she forgave me. She knew that this was not a European sled.
Yeah. You have pictures. It's really breathtaking of pretty much every president for your adult life.
I met a lot of interesting politicians, presidents. It's really, it's a great life. That's all I can tell you.
Wow, Arnold, life after 60, you got a horse as a roommate.
Exactly. That's what it is.